We're going to take our cash flow model to the next level by manipulating it so that we can figure annuities and sinking funds. And remember, an annuity is an investment vehicle that pays out over a certain amount of time. And it's often used by insurance companies as a way for people to retire. So they put money into this annuity and then it pays out over time. Or there's a sinking fund, and a sinking fund is where we identify a specific thing we're saving for, and we're putting that money away for that specific item. So for example, I want a new mountain bike, and they are extremely expensive, and so I set up an account specifically only for that mountain bike, which becomes a sinking fund. That's a personal example. There are other examples in business that you could use as well. For example, if you have an HOA, they'll have a sinking fund where they'll take fees from the inhabitants of the HOA and they'll put money into a sinking fund that's only for maintenance per se. So let's go ahead and begin creating what we have here, as you can see off to our left of this spreadsheet. And we're just going to recreate what we have here, use that as kind of the benchmark. Now first I just want to say where we left off before with our savings cash flow model, we had annual interest rate, compounding periods, periodic interest, but now what we're adding is payment. So that's largely going to be the difference between what we had before and what we have now with sinking funds and annuities. And as you can see here, our cash flow zero, we don't have an initial deposit, but we have deposits that happen at the end of the periods. And you can see here I have end mode, but deposits that happen at the end of the periods, which means that it starts at cash flow 1. If we had them in begin mode, we would have those deposits begin at cash flow 0 and terminate at CF9, even though there are 10. Okay, so the difference between begin and end mode, though we would still have a cash flow 10 just without a deposit or payment here. Okay, so let's begin. First, we have 5 columns wide, and let's just go down and from row 2 down to row 18. And let's just copy this cash flow 10 model. When you duplicate this, for the assignment, you're going to have different cash flow periods. And so you'll just adjust this as you need. But let's begin. Let's just put problem, whatever problem it is. We'll just do X for our intents and purposes right now. We are going to do annual interest, INT. I'd like to put the compounding periods. Okay. Let's do our periodic interest, which we figure by taking the annual interest rate, dividing it by the compounding. Okay. So periodic interest per INT, and then we're going to add payment, PMT. Okay. And let's just go ahead and come up here and alt borders, scratch that. Let's come up here and let's go to more borders. We're going to format this because I don't want those columns coming vertically in the middle. So we are going to select this vertical column. First we'll select none, then we'll hit the vertical column, and then we'll hit OK. The reason why is we just want these rows to show kind of in unison. Alrighty, now let's label our column headings. So deposits. So before we just had deposits, but now we're adding payments. Okay, payments. Let's add our withdrawal column, our interest column, and our balance column. Mind you, when we go to create our own real estate pro formas, we're not going to model it in this manner. The reason why is because the way that they get so complicated, it's easier to actually build the model going from left to right than it is from top to bottom as far as reading it. But that is for another day. Now let's fill in our cash flows. Cash flow 0 or PV. Okay, if we have that, which in our first example we don't. CF1, CF2, and what I like to do is at this point, then you can kind of click and drag. Depending on which system you're using, if you just did CF1 and dragged it, it might just repeat CF1 all the way through, but once you add CF2, it knows you're counting, and then you can bring it down. And there's other ways that you can drag and drop to and have it count, but let's just worry about this for the time being. Okay, so we're not doing a deposit for today, but we are going to do a deposit at the end of our period, our first period. And in this case, we're doing our periods by year. So what I like to do is I kind of like to take note of, let's call this the scratch area. I like to take note of our variables, as you see I've done here. But let's do our periods per year as one, or payments per year, but let's do periods per year as one, okay? So we're not doing it monthly, we're not putting in money monthly, we're just doing it once a year. For how many years? Well, our N is going to be 10, as you see here in our cash flow model. Our interest rate, so I per YR, let's do it 2.5%. And if you put the percentage in there, it'll actually format that to be a percent for you right out of the gates. And what mode are we in? Well, we're putting our money in at the end of the period, so we're not going to do it today, but at the end, so we're going to start at cash flow 1. So mode, let's put this mode, even though I didn't do it the same way, it would do end. Again, if we were going to do begin, it would start at cash flow 0, and we'd type begin here. And then our future value, what we know we want, can be here, and that's going to be 40,000. I also have it down here because for goal seeking purposes, just ease of sight. So it makes it easy to draw out the number that we're going to use for goal seek by putting it right here. So that's really just a duplicate. Alrighty, now let's do our, let's write up our formula so that we are accounting for things appropriately. So our balance, we're not going to have any interest accrue on the first day. So we're not going to worry about interest on day 1. Interest won't have accrued, it won't have time to accrue. So our balance is going to equal deposits plus our withdrawals. Now, why did I do plus when withdrawals is taking money away? Well, because when we put in our withdrawal amount, we're going to put it in as a negative in the cell. That way, because it's negative, you know, when you do I8 plus a negative number, it's going to convert that plus in the equation to a negative, and it'll do the subtraction for us. Okay. Now what we need to do is we need to account for our interest when we get to cash flow 1. And let's make sure that we just have all of this formatted appropriately. And we're going to do highlight the whole thing and hit accounting mode. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to plug in our annual interest. So we're going to want to highlight that blue. We're going to plug in our compounding periods as blue. Our periodic interest is going to be a result of this equation divided by compounding periods. Okay. And it's going to give us that error because there's no numbers in there yet. And then our payment, that's actually what we're going to solve for. At some point you might put an equation here, but for right now we're not, because we're going to use goal seek to find that. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to take our former balance here and multiply that by our periodic interest. And remember, we're going to absolute reference that cell. Hey, but it's showing div because the div divided by 0 because of that there. And then what we can do is we will drag this all the way down like that. And here our balance, this time, since we are dealing with interest, our equation for the balance in this part of the equation will be slightly different. So we're going to go deposit plus withdrawal plus our interest is going to be our new balance. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll just drag this down as well. Our withdrawals and our payments. Because we're doing with sinking funds and annuities, we're just going to assume that our deposits or withdrawals are going to be the same amount each time. And so what we can do here is we can hit equals payment. And this is important for GoalSeek to function. We have to have this in here. Okay, so we're going to come down here, drag this all the way down. Oh, what's our error? Why are we getting withdrawals? Well, because when we did our reference here, we're referencing here. Our CF2 reference is coming to this cell, and then our CF3 is coming to withdrawal. So what we need, is it that we need to do? Absolute reference. Okay, so we can just come up here to the formula bar in the ribbon, hit Command T to absolute reference, and then hit enter, and then let's drag it down. Okay, alrighty. Now withdrawals, we don't have any withdrawals, so let's just go ahead and put dashes in there for now. Okay, and let's make sure that that one is blue. Okay, let's just, for OCD's sake, I just want to make sure we have that bar at the bottom there. Alrighty, now let's go ahead and plug and play. So we're going to take our variables and we're going to plug it into the equation. So what is our annual interest? Well, it's 2.5%. 2.5%. The compounding period is 1, so 1 per year. And we need to make sure that that's in interest. And let's add 4. And let's actually add 4 to here as well, just for our assignment's sake. Okay, but what we're trying to find for this is we have 0 money in a bank account today. We want 40,000. We need to figure out how much we need to pay. Now you could easily just do the payment function here. But what I would like to do, you could do it either way. You could do the payment function, or you could use GoalSeek. And I want you guys to get in the habit of learning how to use GoalSeek. So we're going to use GoalSeek again. So again, for GoalSeek, we come to Data, What If Analysis, here on your ribbon, come down to GoalSeek, and then we just plug and play. So let's just move it over here so you can kind of see what's going on. Well, we want this cell to be 40,000. So set cell L18, absolute reference, to 40,000 by changing our payment cell. Now, again, it'll only be able to GoalSeek if we have the formulas throughout the entire matrix going back and connecting to payment. And remember, we've done that. We have this entire matrix here, or array, referencing payment by having it referenced here. So if I hover over, you can see that's I9, but I9 references this here, J5. So because we have those all connected and referenced, we can go ahead and hit this, hit OK. Oh, and I think what happened is this isn't the right format. So what we need to do is, it's probably, see, it's how it's in general. We want to put that in a number, or we can come here to number. Actually, let's do accounting, because it's actually monetary amount. So we'll do accounting for the format, and let's come back down here. Let's actually just open these cells up just a bit. So we're going to come back here, data, what if analysis, goal seek. Okay, what we have here is L18 is 40,000. And we're going to change payment. Enter, hit enter again. Oh, so it's not figuring because of the value. My mistake. Getting ahead of myself. So let's make sure we're figuring out where we're going wrong. Okay, so what we have for our number here is balance. This, alrighty, is 0. And let's make sure we have okay, let's go ahead and just put what we need to do is we need to get this to be a number, and I don't know why it's being silly. Let's actually make sure we have this all formatted correctly. So let's come back here, let's do this, go back to home, and we're gonna do accounting. Okay, that's right. Now if we run into problems this way, let's hit this. Help on this error. Okay, I'll bring this into the view. A hashtag value is Excel's way of saying there's something wrong with the way your formula is typed, or there's something wrong with the cells you are referencing. The error is very general and it could be hard to find the exact cause of it. Okay, so that at least gives us an idea. Let's trace error. Okay, it's saying that it's in these cells and it probably has to do with not having values in here yet. Okay. This is funny because when I did this over here, I did not run into this issue. So I'm curious. Let's make sure that our this line. Let's do it this way. We can write this a different way. Let's do sum, and let's select all of those cells. Okay. Alrighty, that is probably how we'll solve this problem here. Okay, and then we'll just drag sum all the way down. Okay, my OCD is kicking in. I say that jokingly, but it's kind of true. I actually don't know if I have OCD, but I'm sure I do. Alrighty, now we solved that. Now we can go to goal seek. So we'll go data, what if analysis, goal seek, L18 to 40,000 by changing, and we'll drag this down, J5, enter, and it's gonna back into our formula for us. Let's change, you can see how it did the iterations. Okay. Now, let's see. It looks like something is off. Something's not calculating correctly. And largely because we have $39,000 as the payment. And that shouldn't be right. So let's find out where this is going wrong. Oh, okay. It's probably in this right here. So something in our calculation's off because what we have here is we should have if there's $39,000 deposit, that should be being added here. So there's something wrong with our equation for balance here. So let's go ahead and hit escape. The reason why I'm taking you through this painstaking process is if you run into these types of things, it'll just help you figure, how you back into solving issues. Okay, so we have, oh, do you know what we forgot to do? We forgot to add the balance from the previous cash flow, so my mistake. So what we're going to do is we're going to go this cash flow plus the sum of that, then we'll drag it down. Okay, so that is my mistake. We're not going to change that cell quite yet because we're going to come back up to data, what if, and we'll do this again one more time. Say cell L18, 40,000 by changing our payment. Hit OK. We'll watch it do its calculations. There we go. Now that makes sense. This is the correct answer. This is how you go about using goal-seek. And again, did you see how, because we didn't have our formula set up correctly, it couldn't calculate the goal-seek correctly. But once we added the balance from the previous cash flow in, it worked. I mean, the goal-seek still functioned, but there was a red flag when I didn't see the balance changing. And that's how we were able to go back. So you must make sure that the way that you have your array formulated, that it's done correctly. And once you do the goal-seek, go back and just take a peek and see if something's not happening correctly. Now, if we wanted to add a withdrawal, say we were given, because of the pandemic, we're given an excuse to withdraw from our sinking fund, penalty-free. Say that let's assume that there is a penalty if you withdraw from your sinking fund. Let's say we need to take out $2,000. Okay, and remember we need to make sure that that's a negative because it's a withdrawal. And you can see how now it goes through and it calculates. And now if we wanted to come back and get that 40,000, we could hit goal-seek again. So let's see how adding that $2,000 changed things up. L18, $40,000. And then we're going to come by changing payment cell. We'll hit OK. And it redid the calculation for us. And now we can see that our payment amount adjusted for us. So pretty cool way about going about this with using a cash flow schedule for a sinking fund or an annuity. Now remember, if we are, the way that we set this up is for a sinking fund. If we're doing an annuity, it's going to be reversed. An annuity, we're going to have a lump sum deposit up here, and we're going to withdraw from the initial deposit over the period with usually either a determined amount at the future value or 0 at the future value. And we'll work on that in a future video.